Hello, today we're going to start evaluating limits numerically. We are still in section 1.2. Let me put a title on here for you really quickly. I typically will not do notes while typing them. However, I want to be able to use a calculator today as well as fill in the notes, and the notes are actually pretty short for today. So we're just going to look at a couple of examples. This is actually still in section 1.2. So evaluating limits graphically was in section 1.2, and then this is as well. And then we're going to move on to evaluating limits algebraically, which you can probably imagine is a little bit more involved. So go ahead and pull out your graphing calculators. In order to evaluate a limit numerically, the first thing you need to do is on your calculator, you need to go into y equals, and then you need to type the function. So if you want to pause the video really quick, and if you want to copy down the notes into your notebook so that you can flip back and forth, that's great. But what I'm going to be typing in my calculator right now is the function that we are evaluating the limit for. So I want to approximate what is the limit as x approaches 0 of radical x plus 16 minus 4 all over x. Now, when I go to type that in my calculator, you need to be very careful, and I believe there's an option. I don't know if this calculator will do it. There's a way that you can type in math type, a fraction, but I tend to just use parentheses. If you know the trick, you're welcome to use that. So if you just put parentheses around the numerator and denominator, it does the same thing. So I have radical x plus 16. I'm going to go out of the radical, minus 4, and then I'm going to divide that by x. And I would use parentheses around the denominator as well if there was more than one term, but since the denominator is just x, I can leave it just like that. Now what I'm actually going to be using is my table, and so I'm going to set my table up how I like it. And I would recommend that you set your table up the same way. Your independent variable is your x variable, or your x is your input. And we want to be able to type whatever input we want into our table. And so we need to change our independent variable so that it says ask. So that way you can ask the calculator to calculate y values. So if you put in an x value, it will then automatically calculate your y values. So this is how your table setup should be. Again, to get to this menu, you have to press the second button in Window, which if you see above it in blue says Table Setup. And what that allows is when you go to your table, you can type in numbers rather than having it already filled in for you. Now, in this window, if you want to delete an entry, if you put your cursor on top of it and you hit delete, it just gets rid of it. I don't think clear works. Nope. But I believe if you hit, nope. So you just have to delete the entries if you want. But you can always type on top of them as well, like if you want to change this to 5 or something along those lines. So we are trying to evaluate the limit as x approaches 0. Now, if you look at the calculator at 0, the calculator is giving you an error. And we're trying to figure out what's happening there. So we could graph this and look at the graph. But we know from yesterday or from earlier in the week that when we are evaluating limits numerically, we're trying to figure out what is happening to the y values as x is getting closer and closer to whatever our target value is. So in example number 1, that target value is 0. So what's happening to the y values as x gets closer and closer to 0? So what I'm going to look at are numbers really close to 0. And if you look, negative 0.1 is a little further away from 0 than negative 0.01 and then negative 0.001. So as I'm picking these values, I am getting closer and closer to 0. So essentially, this part of the chart right here is finding the left-handed limit at 0. And then the other side of the chart is finding the right-handed limit. And then as we read the chart in from both sides, it should be estimating the limit for us. So let's type those values in. So we have negative 0.1, negative 0. Let's see what just happened. Oh, I used the subtraction. Negative 0.1, negative 0.01, negative 0.001, and then we'll do 0.001, 0.01, and then 0.1. Now your calculator will only will always round to a certain number of decimal places. So if you scroll up and down over the Y column, it will actually put the longer decimal. And so what we're going to do is we are going to put those values in the table. So I'm going to scooch this over. That's actually why I did it this way. So I can't actually do this on my tablet because I don't have the graphing calculator on my tablet. So then you are going to fill in the Y values in this table. So 0.1252, 0.1250. And again, you can be typing that or writing this in your notebook. I'm only typing it so I can show it to you at the same time. And then, let's see. This is actually 0.1250 if I'm rounding to 4 decimal places. And then on the other side, it's the same, 0.1250. 0.12498 would also round to 0.1250. 4 decimal places is completely fine. 0.1248. And then as we're getting closer from the left side, I'm approaching 0.125 as I am from the right side. So if I were to approximate what this limit equals, this limit is equal to 0.125. That is an approximation, and we will talk about how to evaluate this algebraically next section. So now let's figure out what the limit as x approaches negative 2 is of x squared plus 7x plus 10 all over x plus 2. I'm going to recommend that you pause the video and try and do this on your own and see what you come up with. I will also warn you to make sure you put parentheses around the top and the bottom. But now I'm going to go ahead and do the question. So I'm going to start by changing my equation. So I'm going to clear that one. And I have x squared plus 7x plus 10. And I have parentheses around the entire numerator. And then divided by x plus 2. And then I'm going to take a look at the table for this. I need to change my values. So I have 2.9, and then 2.99, 2.999. I'm getting real close to 3. Oh, I'm not typing in the right numbers. You're going to laugh when you see where those numbers came from. Might have been typing the answers. So I have negative 2.1. The negative sign doesn't work on mine keyboard. Negative 2.1. Negative 2.01. Negative 2.01. Negative 2.001. See that 2.9 I was accidentally typing in a second ago. And then we have negative, I still have to click this, 1.999, negative 1.99, and then negative 1.9. So now those numbers are the y values as I'm trying to approximate the limit here. So that gives me 2.9, 2.99, 2.999. You can clearly see that the limit from the left, as I'm getting closer to negative 2, is approaching 3. And then from the right-hand side as well, we have 3.001, 3.01, and 3.1. And as you move from the right side, it's also approaching a y value of 3, meaning our limit as x approaches negative 2 is 3. So now I want to show you how to find your homework on your textbook. So what I did is I logged in, and I'm actually logged in as a student. And so this, if you're in period 5, it'll say a different section if you're not in period 5. But once you log into WebAssign, this is what you see. Now here are where assignments will be, and you actually have an assignment on Friday of this week. And so on Friday, an assignment's going to pop up here. But you also have, if you scroll down, your textbook. So if I click your textbook, I just kind of want to show you how to get to the exercises. It'll take a second to load. And then these are all the different chapters. So we are currently in chapter 1. And when you go into chapter 1, it's going to come up with a menu, and you kind of, it actually takes you straight to the exercises. The reason it did that is because I was already in the exercises. Let's see. This might pop up. So if it doesn't take you directly to the exercises, if it takes you here, you can see, you can see the different topics it's teaching you, and you can click on those, and it'll take you to like the teaching portion of the textbook, or you can click exercises and it will take you to the exercises. Quick note, we did start with section 1.2. We skipped section 1.1. And when I give you homework assignments, I will always just tell you this section and what problems I want you to do. The reason it had jumped straight there before is because I had practiced this before the video, and so it remembered my spot. So you are to do these in your notebook just like you would if it were a textbook at home. And the nice thing is, so like let's say you're working on number 1, so you try number 1, and if you click answer, the answer pops up. Now, I will say that this does not show you the work. However, it at least shows you the answer, so that way you can check your work, or you can check your work, and then if you have questions, you can email me, and I will be happy to answer those. I hope that you are having a good day. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you very much.